All right, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is David Boland, and I'm on the product marketing team here at Wasabi, and I'm very excited because we have two special guests joining me today. With me today are Andy Shearer from Stone Security and Lance Kelson from Tiger Technologies. We'll talk about those guys and the companies in a moment, but before we get started, I just want to remind you that you have the opportunity to ask questions in the question and answer box, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. Also, there will be materials available for you to download if you would like this presentation or information about Stone or Tiger or Wasabi. That is available for download as well. So excellent. Our focus today will be the emergence of the hybrid cloud for video surveillance and video surveillance storage. The world of surveillance has changed a lot in the past few years. File sizes are growing due to higher resolution and frame rates. Retention requirements, the amount of time in which you need to keep your video footage, are getting longer due to industry regulations and state and federal government regulations. And there are just a lot more devices out there recording what's going on. And this is having an impact on surveillance solutions, especially on the video footage storage. That is an ever-growing cost for many people, because now you have a lot more video that you need to store. You need to store it securely and for a longer period of time, and that's eating up a lot of people's budgets. So, what does the world need? Well, it needs three things. Well, it needs a lot of things, but in terms of our webinar today, it really needs three things. First, it needs professionals that understand modern security integration, and that's where Andy and the team from Stone Security come in. They've been at the forefront of delivering advanced technology for surveillance to their customers, for access control, for surveillance, for intrusion systems for over 15 years, probably going on 20 by now. They've probably heard it and seen it and done it well before most other systems integrators have had a chance to even hear of it. So we're happy to have Andy here with us today. Second, we need a way to bridge the on-site platforms to the cloud. It's a hybrid cloud solution that we're talking about, and the hybrid cloud delivers the best of on-prem platforms plus the best of cloud technology. And if you can't get there between the on-prem and the cloud, you're out of luck. And that's where Lance Kelson and the team from Tiger come in. They've been building the technology that bridges on-prem to the cloud since the inception of clouds. Actually, they've been around since the earliest days of clouds. And so again, like Stone, they've probably seen it and done it and been involved in it long before most people have. And then thirdly, of course, you need a cloud storage solution, and that's where Wasabi comes into play. And so I'll spend some time at the end of the presentation talking about why Wasabi Cloud Storage is the right place for video surveillance, talk about what makes Wasabi different from others, and I will give you some ideas of how we compete and contrast to other clouds. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy. And Andy, please take it away. Give us an overview of yourself and of Stone Security.
Hey, thanks a lot. Very glad to be here. Hope everybody's having a great day. Stone Security, who we are, we've been on the front lines, like David said, helping customers use video surveillance to solve problems since 2005. We have worked with customers in nearly 100 countries and every state in the United States deploying video surveillance. We saw the tail end of the analog boom, and we witnessed the advent of network-based cameras, and are still witnessing the continued success of IP cameras, though we still see hundreds of analog cameras needing to eventually be upgraded to IP. I personally recently moved to Las Vegas to start a local branch here for our team, and we're seeing analog cameras just about everywhere we go, especially in the gaming industry. So I know there's still a lot of work to do to transition the world over to IP. There are hundreds of thousands of analog cameras up and down the strip. These will all eventually need to be upgraded and put on the network. Our team has maintained a motto to become the most trusted and sought after security integrator in the world. And we are receiving nationwide recognition as we carry on toward that everlasting goal. We do have a unique business model. We focus on partnerships very heavily, that we choose manufacturers and we settle in with those companies. And we've been doing business with our video provider, Milestone, and also with our camera provider, Axis, for the better part of a decade, maybe even longer. We focus on these partnerships. We standardize early on with a preference for open platform style software systems, which we felt offered our customers greater flexibility and more control of their investment long term. Fortunately for us, the manufacturer partners we selected were and have remained the best of breed and have all continued to integrate well together. In 2013, Milestone Systems created a brand new partner level. They created a diamond partner level specifically for our company in an effort to reward the loyalty and incentivize other security integrators to behave similarly to how we behave. We are firm believers in specialization. We train every one of our employees on the products that we sell. We don't just offer, whatever is on the shelf at clearance price for the day. We're highly awarded. You can see some of the awards on this page. Last year, we were SDM's Integrator of the Year. SDM is one of the more prominent publications in our industry. In fact, I think probably the most read magazine, online magazine in our industry. And then also we received an award for Best Project of the Year through what used to be the SDNI Fast 50. You're probably all familiar with that. We've also been awarded a Secure Cities Award, Best Project of the Year, Best Combined Partnership with City and County of Denver. And then down on the bottom of this, you can see all the different milestone awards we've won. We've certainly achieved prominence in the world of IP video specific to implementing milestone systems. So why would you care about any of that crap I just told you about, especially if you're working with someone else already? More power to you. If you are, that's great. But because a group like ours with these credentials is on record today, and this is being recorded, that we have searched high and low for a solid solution, making video surveillance in the cloud a surefire reality and a simple reality. And if you want to switch to the next slide, David, we have found the Holy Grail, and we're here to tell you all about it. We have cracked the code. And it matters today. There are a lot of cloud options out there, and they all have a fun little message to go over with you, but this is the way. This is the way to do it. We've looked high and low. Like I said, we've tried them all. We've worked with and at least piloted and at least considered with our expertise what each of those offerings have to offer. And like I say, this is the Holy Grail. What these guys are about to tell you after me is what we're here for. So maybe switch one more slide, David. So the cloud is a funny concept. One quick story, and then I'll let the tech guys actually wow you with what we're talking about here. I remember attending a conference 10 or 12 years ago, so a while ago, and in our industry, kind of sort of in the infancy of the IP industry. So after an awards dinner, I had one of the strangest conversations I'll ever remember. I was congratulating one of the presenters and thanking him for a solid message, although I can't even remember what his topic was now. All I remember is him saying with this distinct drunken slur in his voice, "Pretty soon, all video is going to be managed in the cloud." And I honestly remember laughing to myself because he reminded me of all the drunk guys I used to run into when I lived in Ukraine on a 2-year religious service mission. They all wanted to tell me how to live. And I laughed it off, walked away wondering what on earth this guy would have been talking about. It's a little embarrassing, actually, but I had to Google the phrase managed in the cloud because I had never even heard of the cloud before. But of course, a lot has changed since then. And the takeaway from that experience for me are, number one, never question prophetic messages of destiny offered by those with zero inhibition and a blood toxicity level greater than 0.08. And better go back and read my journal to see if the Ukrainian drunks might have offered any clues for finding Marty McFly's almanac. So cloud, that's what we're here for. We all know what it is now. However, we're all still working to understand whether or not cloud computing, cloud storage might be a useful tool, or what the most practical approach might be for our organization to leverage cloud to save money and time. Switch to the next slide, please. So last thing I'll say, even though we all feel like we've been talking about this forever, cloud surveillance for a few years, adoption has been pretty slow. I feel like it's the same concept as for me, parabolic snow skis. In my family, we have a history of ski racing. And when I started to race, it was just before parabolic skis started to come out. 1990, I was 6. Don't try to waste your time doing the math. I'm 37 now. I'm sure most people know what parabolic skis are now, but the history is relevant. In the 80s, Olin engineer Frank Matteo started designing skis with a radical side cut, essentially giving these skis an hourglass-like shape. Brand new. Nobody had ever seen it done. 1990, Elan trademarked the term parabolic with the release of their Side Cut Extreme, or SCX. Maybe some of you skiers will remember. The first shaped skis designed to make carving easier. Shaped skis marked a dramatic shift that made it possible for every type of skier, this is important, every type of skier to carve. Elan captured the market the first couple of years, and then everybody jumped on the bandwagon. My dad was a great racer, and he taught me and my brothers how to ski, but we had to cut his GS 205s with a chainsaw before he'd try the shaped skis. I can still remember him coming out of the Summit demo shop at the top of this Park City Resort. They had a little ski out demo shop at the top of the Silverlode chair. He was a little uneasy for those first 2 or 3 turns, but man, once he got the hang, he ripped and he never looked back. And he still uses those same skis from 2008. So I don't think he's learned his lesson about trying new things. And I've tried to talk him into twin tips, but he laughs me out of the room every time. So the video surveillance world is my dad. And the solution we as a team have developed to show is the parabolic ski. As soon as people take a few turns, they will rip and never look back. We've already helped a number of organizations, large organizations, work on plans for adding cloud services to their toolkit. We have an intelligence and logistics intermediary with hundreds of locations across the US, some even requiring DoD approval for security measures. So yes, it is secure. Church, we have a church with a global presence, over 10,000 meeting houses in 160 countries, working through some ins and outs of cloud, and obviously some of this is still in its infancy. We are working with a retail organization managing over 400 convenience stores in the Rocky Mountains, and we have we're working with an American television provider and direct broadcast satellite provider. One difference between skiing and cloud is that with our way, it's not all or nothing. You don't have to cut up your 205s, which is actually one of the main reasons you should be listening to the guys following me and ignoring Verkada and Meraki. This is an all open platform where those VSaaS solutions usually require full rip and replace of their existing cameras. Can't wait for you to hear from Lance and David. I feel like I said earlier, we have finally cracked the code on cloud for video surveillance. It's easy, it's affordable, and seriously at your own pace. Take it away, Lance.
Andy, thanks so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for you guys real quickly here, or you want to drop your share?
I'll stop my sharing over here, and then you
okay.
Go over. I'll kick it to you. You might see our ugly mugs for a moment.
Yeah, we can all wave at everybody for at least a couple seconds. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Andy, nice job on the intro. So are you saying I need to get a new pair of skis?
If you don't have parabolic, probably about time to get twin tips.
Yeah. Or you just have to give up, David. Okay, so let's go ahead here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for everybody. And hopefully you guys can all see that. Everybody good?
Perfect, Lance. Looks great.
Great. Okay, and don't worry, everybody. I've got one slide, period. What I'd like to do is just follow up with what David and Andy were both saying here. So I'm with Tiger Technology, and as you already heard, we've been doing this for quite some time. We've actually been providing very sophisticated storage management software solutions for almost 17 years now. We do this across the board in multiple areas, whether it's media and entertainment, security and surveillance, general IT, medical, etc. But the technology is especially beneficial, as Andy said, and I love the analogy, Andy, because this really does open it up to anybody and everybody, and it makes it extremely quick and easy. So let me run through a few of the things that are most important for everyone to know. So first of all, what is it, right? So what Tiger Bridge is software only. It does not require any additional hardware. There is no change to your existing workflow. It's actually put it in, install it in about 2 minutes, literally. And we do this, Andy and I have done a number of these, and we have active customers with both Wasabi and Milestone and Tiger using this daily with thousands of cameras. The way it works is it takes about 2 minutes to install it on the recording server. We have a couple of plugins that I'll show you in a second here as well. So it's 100% integrated into Milestone X Protect. You don't have to go outside of Milestone to do anything. You don't have to know anything special about the cloud. You can do everything directly inside of the interface. So what does it actually give you? The ability here that we're providing in that 2 minutes without rebooting your systems is to be able to either extend your local storage into the cloud, but you can also have a complete disaster recovery. And the disaster recovery is very, very key. Most people know that there's kind of a 3-2-1 rule for your data. You typically, if you can do it, you want to have 3 copies of your data, 2 on different sets of media, and then 1 must be off-site. One of the things that David was referring to earlier with the compliance and a lot of different places that are saying, look, you have to have an off-site copy of your data. The great thing about that is with Wasabi, we can make it very, very easy to get the data there for you without you thinking about it. And it's extraordinarily safe in the cloud once the data is there. So you have like a perfect disaster recovery backup, if you will, in the cloud. Now, we can also reduce the on-prem cost very easily because we allow you to take a small disk drive or SSD and extend it into the cloud. So you could literally have a 1 terabyte hard drive or SSD, but as far as Milestone is concerned, that 1 terabyte SSD or disk drive is going to look like as much as anything you want. It could literally be multiple petabytes in the cloud. Now, typically, probably 10 to 50 terabytes, maybe 100 terabytes, depending on your actual retention period that's critical to you. But everything is seamless and you get that immediate scale. We do not lock your data in any way. This is very, very key. If we were to go away, and frankly, even if Milestone wasn't on your system anymore, but you need the data, you can always go directly into the cloud and pull your data out. We leave it in its native format so that we're not locking you in and effectively forcing you to pay for somebody that is locking the access to your data, which obviously would not be good for anybody. If the data is in the cloud, of course, there are a lot of things that are open to you. As we go through the next few years, this is going to become more and more apparent, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of things you can do with artificial intelligence in the cloud. When we push the data into the cloud, that data can be made more valuable by doing AI functions, and we have other ways that we can tie in the AI services with your data that's sitting in the cloud. Probably the most important point that we need to talk about, Andy mentioned the Meraki's and Verkatas. It is critical to understand this point. We work even if the internet is not working. So if the internet is down, or if it's maybe you normally have 100 megabits and it's only at 50 or something. So regardless of if it's just not going as fast as it should be, which could be catastrophic for you, obviously, or if it's out completely, we don't care. in the case of these other VSAS systems, if the camera data can't get to the cloud data center or to the cloud compute, your data is going to fall on the floor. In our case, we always know what data needs to go and be replicated into the cloud. And if the internet's out, we just keep track of that. And when the internet comes back, we will continue replicating and making sure you have a safety copy in the cloud, continue extending the data into the cloud. Don't have to learn anything new. You don't have to know about FSX or EC2 or any of the various things as far as cloud compute or any of the complexities. You don't have to think about that at all. And with this Tiger technology that we have, the Tiger Bridge, it does support any of the cloud providers, any of the storage tiers, and it also supports on-prem storage targets, whether they're object storage or not. So we think of it as we can take your data and push it anywhere you want to go. Okay, so that's it for the slides. Now, those of you that are familiar with Milestone and XProtect, I'm sure you're going to recognize this. And what I'm doing is just playing back data. What is really cool about what you're seeing right now is this data is not on my system. This data is coming directly out of Wasabi right now, okay? So I know that's, you're saying, well, how does that work? The reason it works is Tiger, what we do is we actually allow you to take data that's sitting on the hard drive. And for a second, I'm going to just call this up. These are the actual camera files that Milestone records. If I just look at one of these files and look at the properties on it, it's going to show me it's a 16 megabyte file, but on disk, I have virtually nothing. Now, typically, these will be literally at 0 because what we do is we allow you to have the Milestone thinks the data is local, but we can actually offload the data and have it only be in Wasabi. So in this case, this file I'm looking at, if Milestone wants to play it back, it plays it back immediately. And just like this, if I double click on the timeline and hit play, that's exactly what's happening right now. We are actually pulling the data directly out of Wasabi. The data immediately goes back into the placeholder files that Milestone thinks are there all the time, and you start seeing the data back, okay? So it makes it completely seamless. By the way, you can turn this interface off. You don't have to show the orange, but normally in Milestone, this would be a red line. And that's just how Milestone is. The orange overlay is something we can turn on and off, but orange indicates that the data is no longer on my machine. It's actually in the cloud target. Okay, now to dive in another step here. This is very important to know that inside of Milestone, this is what's called their management client. And the management client has our plugin. So if you look on the left over here, you can see Storage Bridge. Storage Bridge is what we call our plugin, the Tiger Bridge plugin for Milestone. We have two things that are key. We have disaster recovery, which is literally taking all of your data and making sure every bit of data that you need in the event of a disaster, we have all of the data. That's the camera data, but also it's the Milestone camera database information, right? So anything we need to recreate that timeline, we can do by doing this disaster recovery. Now, the reason you see two here, we have a local default and storage one. For those of you familiar with Milestone, you know you can set up multiple recording locations. This is an important point that we support. We allow you may have, for instance, one recording location with maybe 50 cameras. You may have a different local recording location that has a different number of cameras that you want to treat differently. You may want to have those, for instance, have a longer retention period because they're your 360 8K cameras or something, right? So we have the ability to, when you set up your storage locations inside of Milestone, I have two of them here. And when I look at my disaster recovery, you notice I have the same two, local default and storage one. Just to explain real quickly, I'm going to add another storage location. I'm going to put it on my D drive. And this would be what you do inside of Milestone if you want to add another recording location and throw some more cameras on it, right? You do not need to add an archive inside of Milestone at all. You do not need to actually add a separate archive. This is just another storage location. And look what happened when I click on me now. Now I have a third location. I have local, storage 1, and storage 2. What I've got my system set to is I have 2 different groups of cameras, and each group of camera is going to Wasabi. So if you look right here where my cursor is, you can see it says I'm on Wasabi. Now, just for fun, David, I hope you appreciate this. I named my bucket No Egress 1 and No Egress 2, okay?
Right.
Because David's going to tell you about the really cool thing is when I pull data out of Wasabi, there are no egress charges, okay? Which is a huge benefit for the security and surveillance industry, okay? So let's say I just had a brand new camera. Andy sold me this great camera. He told me all about it. So what I did is I just added that new recording location. All I have to do is hit enable, and then this is my screen to pick where do I want the new camera data to go. Now I have the choice of anything, including on premises, because there may be a case where a bunch of your data is going to Wasabi and some data for some reason needs to go to a data center across town. That's fine. We support network shares, any kind of local storage or object storage, in addition to all of the clouds and cloud tiers. In my case, I would just pick Wasabi again, hit next, put in my secret information, and I would select the new bucket where I want the data to go. It's that simple. Okay, so the setup is just a piece of cake on here. And the benefit of the disaster recovery is if you lose a recording server, you could literally light up a new, even a virtual machine, a VM, you could light up a new machine, put the recording server from Milestone on it, take 2 minutes literally to install my plugin. And within minutes, you can index all of that data that's inside of David Boland's Wasabi bucket. And what you would get back on your screen would be exactly what you're seeing here. I would get an orange timeline indicating I know there's data up in that cloud bucket, but I don't have to bring it all back just to keep going. So instead of hours upon hours, possibly days in some cases, of having to bring all the data back from wherever you had it, we don't have to do that. In minutes, we can index all of the data inside of the Wasabi Cloud bucket, see an orange timeline. Milestone thinks the data's here. All I have to do is hit play and I'm good to go. Okay. Now, the other thing is extension. So this again is how to save all your data, have an offsite copy, extremely safe. Like I think David's going to tell you it takes millions of years to lose data or something like that. So he'll tell you about that. But the other option you have here is what we call extension. Okay, so let's just look at the top one. These are a couple of cameras that are going into Wasabi. What I've done is I've set my policy up to not only have that disaster recovery, but I don't want to take a lot of extra disk space because I don't have a lot of disk space on my system. All you have to do is hit the configure the standard extension, right, which is going to Wasabi, as you can see here. And you get to determine how much data do you want to store locally. And you do that either by telling the system that, hey, you know what, if I haven't touched this data in a week or 5 days, or maybe even in my case, I have it set to 1 hour, it will remove the data locally. Make sure it's still safely in the cloud, of course, but Milestone thinks it's still here. And the way we do that is we turn the actual files, the actual camera files, into what we call placeholder files or stub files. And that's done 100% at the file system level. We are technically a file system filter driver. We're not even an application. We're actually an enhancement to the Windows file system. And that's why this works so seamlessly. We do something that nobody else does the way we do it, not requiring extra hardware or anything. But we allow you to say, like I've done here, okay, after 1 hour, free up the local space. Now, realistically, what we tell people to do is typically this: 3 or 4 days. Here's why. If somebody cuts your fiber outside of your building, so your actual internet is out, you want to have a few days probably to have somebody fix that fiber. But as I said in my slide at the beginning, It doesn't matter if the internet is out because Tiger Bridge, is constantly monitoring the file system. We know every new file. We know when the files were modified. We know if they've been copied to Wasabi or not. And we know if you've replaced or reclaimed the space as well. So we know everything about the files at the file system level. So this is a typical thing that somebody would do, is just say, okay, give me 3 or 4 days of local storage, which means you don't have to buy as big, you don't have to have as much capacity local. We have a lot of people now that are doing like 1 or 2 SSDs, 1 or 2 terabytes, and they set it, in their case, a lot of people have done this. They set it so that if that SSD ever gets more than 80% full, like I've put in my selection here, at that point, what we'll do is at that point, make sure everything is copied to Wasabi, and we'll then basically free up space on the SSD. So you can, this is a quote from the CEO of Wasabi, as a matter of fact. He likes to call it bottomless storage. So you can make it so that you have an SSD or a disk drive that's a very small SSD or disk drive, but it becomes bottomless storage. Milestone thinks that 1 or 2 terabyte drive is actually 50, 60 terabytes in the cloud. Okay, so that's all done transparently. You don't have to think about this. You set it up once, which literally takes 2 minutes. Again, you can have multiple locations if you have multiple groups of cameras, but it gives you an ideal amount of safety, security, but also you don't have to think about it. You just keep operating the exact same way you're used to. If the data's been transitioned off to the cloud, it still comes back immediately. You don't have to wait for it or anything. And on that note, I think I'll pass it back to David.
That's awesome. All right, Lance, thank you very much. I'm going to start my screen again. And I'm going to share with everybody who's Wasabi and why should you care. I'm feeling inadequate for a couple reasons here. One is because Lance didn't even need slides. I use them as a crutch. And 2, my slides aren't as cool as Andy's. So you know what, you live and you learn. And so I'll know better next time I get into a webinar agreement with these guys. I know I have to up my game. So I want to talk about who is Wasabi and why you should care, right? So if parabolic skis or twin tip skis are the next generation of skis, well, Wasabi is the next generation of cloud object storage. We launched our service in 2017. We are the fastest growing cloud storage service out there. We compete directly with AWS, Azure, Google, and IBM, and all the other cloud object storages out there. But we feel that we've got a next generation solution that makes it easier for our customers and users to understand. It's a lot less expensive than AWS S3 or Azure Blob and the others, and we've got fantastic performance. So much like Parabolic skis, performance, easy to understand, easy to use, are key to who Wasabi is. Now, there's things that are specifically different about Wasabi. I just want to make sure we get the point across. Lance did a great job of pointing out that his buckets are named No Egress 1 and No Egress 2 in his demo. Well, it's important to know that Wasabi doesn't charge for customers to get their video back from the cloud. If you put your video in AWS S3, Azure Blob, Google Cloud, anybody else, they're going to charge you something for you to egress that video to get it back. It could be as low as 2 cents a gigabyte, or it could be as high as 9 cents a gigabyte. That's $90 a terabyte. And if you do lose a server, or you do need to replace the video that was lost on-prem for whatever reason, it's going to end up costing you if you have those first-generation architectures from those cloud providers. Wasabi doesn't charge for egress. We don't charge for API requests. A little bit on the technical side, but an API request is every time someone spins some kind of compute in the cloud in order to to put something up there or send something back or check inventory on your buckets. There's an API request that goes up to the cloud, and if it goes to the wrong cloud, they're going to charge you for every time you make a request. That's not the case with Wasabi. We don't have API request charges. We don't have complex storage tiers, hot, warm, cold, wicked cold, super cold, or anything else. It's just one tier. It's $5.99 list price per month per terabyte. So that competes with the cold archive tiers of AWS and Azure and Google, but it is all hot storage. So it is available at the click of a mouse or the request of a Milestone app, or as fast as milliseconds, as fast as you want it back. So it's less expensive. There's no egress. There's no hidden costs. There's no different storage tiers associated with Wasabi. And so what does this do for you guys on the surveillance side? Well, it allows you to move to the cloud at the pace that is right for you. We're not saying we're not interested in people moving to the cloud 100%. There's options out there for that. But you know what we feel is that there's just a large install base of billions of dollars of equipment and video management software licenses and cameras and just an install base that would like to migrate to the cloud at its own pace. There's no interruption, as Lance said, to the system when you load the Tiger Technology Tiger Bridge storage bridge on the device. It doesn't reboot the system. It keeps going. So there's no need, to worry about interruptions or changes to the system. There's no confusing tiers of Wasabi Cloud Storage or hidden costs, so you don't have to go to cloud school in order to get a certification. It's super simple to use, and we're more in the business of transitioning customers to the cloud and not transforming them. This is not a science fair project where you have 15 or 20 different storage or compute and database services in AWS. You have to figure out how to tie them all together. It's simple. It's storage. It's probably the easiest part of any cloud solution is storage. So why not start with storage? Now, I mentioned, storage architectures and multiple tiers, right? And there is a lot of confusion out there about what tiers are right for which solution and which tiers are right for which use case. And AWS, Azure, Google, they all have different tiers. There's the S3 standard. There's, of course, there's intelligent tiering that moves data between or video between them. There's infrequent access one zone, Glacier, and Deep Archive. All of them have different pricing, and all of them have different costs. And you really can't understand if you are a customer what your cloud bill is going to be at the end of each month, because even though you may have some kind of flat capacity amount that you're using, 100 terabytes, 50 terabytes, or 25 terabytes, it doesn't matter. The hidden costs associated with those are what's going to be surprising most folk at the end of the month when they get their bill. And the hidden costs really are the pieces that people, are surprised to see. I mentioned API puts and gets and inventory operations. That's just the charges you get for putting something up into someone's cloud or getting those charges back. If you accidentally or somehow you thought it was a wise idea to put your video surveillance footage on a Glacier or Deep Archive, and you didn't realize it takes 5 hours or 15 hours to get that video back, but you need to get it back in order to meet some compliance standards, Department of Consumer Protection shows up and says, hey, show me some video from 2 weeks ago, and if it's sitting on the wrong tier, you can get it back faster, but you have to pay the transfer acceleration costs to get that back. And that's just extortion fees that the cloud providers charge you in order to get it back because it's an emergency. Wasabi doesn't have any transfer acceleration costs. If you want your video back, it comes back within 15 milliseconds. That's our time to first byte. There's no retrieval fees, which is different from the egress fee. And if you end up, again, putting it in the wrong tier, it goes into a Glacier or Deep Archive. Well, there's object overhead charges associated with that. And that's object overhead charges are overlooked by most people because they don't know what they are. But that's the data that AWS will use in order to find your video footage when you go to look for it. So they're charging you for the metadata they use to find the video when you ask for it back. Everything you do in those clouds have hidden costs associated with them. Not Wasabi. Again, it's straight monthly storage charge. If you know how much data you're going to store, how much video you're going to store, you know exactly what your price or your cost is going to be. So you've seen, at least on the IT side of the world for the last 10, 15 years, horror stories of people who have moved to the cloud and then got burned because they didn't realize the cost associated with it. If you do a quick Google search on hidden cloud costs or hidden horror stories of cloud or anything else, you're going to come up with possibly, well, hundreds for sure, possibly thousands of different articles or blogs or reports or analyst notes and reports on the hidden costs associated with those clouds. Again, We're in the early stages of cloud for video surveillance and security. We can learn from what or how the pioneers took the arrows, on the IT side of the house, so that we don't make the same mistakes with video surveillance and for intrusion detection or other security use cases, right? And so I'm going to use Milestone as an example here. Just a quick pricing example of what the costs are for putting 100 terabytes of storage in Wasabi using TigerTech, and then 100 terabytes of video storage going to AWS. And in this case, I've laid out all three archives, all three or four, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers in this case. There's S3 at $23 a terabyte. There's infrequent access at $12 a terabyte, $10 for one zone, then $4 a terabyte for Glacier, and 99 cents a terabyte per month for Deep Archive. Now you might say, well, $99 a month for 100 terabytes of storage, that's a pretty good deal. Nothing can go wrong with that one, right? However, it's where the hidden costs come in that get you. So the cost associated with putting 100 terabytes of Milestone in those clouds or in those tiers of AWS differ depending on what tier you're looking at. Your put costs for 100 terabytes in Deep Archives, $312. That's based on average Milestone file size of 16 megabytes. So $312 just to put the video up there, not to store it, just to put it, right? Maybe something goes wrong and you say, okay, I need only 10% of that back. And I'm not saying get all 100% of it back. I'm just saying 10% of that 100 terabytes, which is, of course, 10 terabytes. 10% is really, understandable and easy to do, right? So in order to get that video back, you have to have a data retrieval request. That's another $200 just to request for that, get that video back, all right? The action of going to get that video is an API get. That's another $50 in Deep Archive and in Glacier, right? And then the egress for that is another $900. $900 for 10 terabytes. There you go. So all of a sudden you went from having what looked like a low cost on paper to having an extremely high cost based on all the hidden costs and the egress and the retrievals. And in this case of Wasabi, the price never deviated from $599 per month. And therefore, you can see there's a big difference as to what happens to you when you put your video in first generation cloud versus second generation cloud. Now, I mentioned hot cloud performance earlier, and that's what we are. We are a next generation solution. So we've built a software and hardware architecture that writes and reads video files to and from the cloud a lot faster than you're going to find in AWS, Azure, or Google. Right, for 10 megabit writes, we're sometimes 1.5 to 2 times faster, depending on if you're reading or writing, getting that video footage up there and getting it back. Our architecture is different than anybody else's. We use some SSD for our database servers. Our user servers are lightning fast too, and then our storage servers are just well, of course they're as wicked fast as well. And we tie this all together with 100 gig pipes between them, and we have load balancers and just the next generation cloud architecture that was not available when the first clouds were designed back in 2004, 5, and 6. When AWS S3 went live in 2006, the world was different back then. And if they were going to build a cloud today, I guarantee you they're not going to build it just like they did back in 2006. They're going to take advantage of the latest software and hardware architectures that Wasabi has. Right now, they can't. I guess it's like taking I guess you could carve out a pair of old alpine skis to look parabolic, but it probably won't work as well. I'm going to use that, Andy. Right now, I'm just going to make a statement. Everybody knows that I'm going to plagiarize Andy's examples, and I may or may not give him credit for it someday.
I have no trademarks.
So so we got price, we have performance, right? But is my video secure in Wasabi? That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely yes. Lance mentioned earlier, we've got 11 nines of durability. That means 99.9 other nines after that point that says that your data is going to be available, be there when you need it. It's data durability, right? So that means our architecture is not going to have bit rot or suffer from or any kind of bit rot or or problems with your video surveillance, it's going to be there for the long haul. That bars any acts of nature and God, but our design is the 11 nines of durability. That's exactly what you find in the best architectures at AWS, Azure, and Google. This is what we have at Wasabi. We've got 4 nines of availability through our data centers. Oh, I didn't mention where our data center is located. For those of us in North America, we've got 2 on the East Coast in Virginia. We've got 1 in Dallas, Texas. We've got 1 in Oregon. So you have your choices. And if you want to put backup copies of video between different regions, absolutely. We do data integrity checks on the video every time it's uploaded and downloaded, and then every 90 days to make sure it's healthy. We've got security as far as encryption goes. On its way to Wasabi, it's encrypted as it's coming over the internet or a direct connection. When it gets to us, we re-encrypt it when it's flying between our servers, and when it's resting on the spinning disk, it's all encrypted as well. Totally fine. We've got CGIS and FINRA and FERPA and HIPAA compliance. The data centers we use are SOC 2 and ISO 27001 compliant. We've got what are known as immutable objects or immutable buckets and object lock for the data. There are options for you, the end user, that you decide, hey, I've got this video that I need to keep for chain of evidence reasons or chain of custody reasons or for legal reasons, and I've got to make sure that I can prove that it hasn't been altered or changed for a period of time. We can guarantee that with our bucket immutability. If you say, I've got to keep this video for 7 years and it can't go anywhere, it can't be held ransom, it can't be deleted or fat-fingered or messed around with, we can put them in a bucket at no extra charge that provides that immutability. So our compliance with CGIS and HIPAA and FINRA and FERPA and everything else is exactly what most folks need, and they're comfortable with the fact that Wasabi is designed and delivered in the best data centers out there. And so again, who is Wasabi and why should you care? I said we're the fastest growing company out there as far as storage goes. We've got 25,000 customers or more today. It's only since 2017. Since 2017, we've grown. I'd say it's close to 40,000 customers now, but of course we're channel focused, so we end up going through the channel for most of our sales. And if a channel partner has a specific end user, we don't always know who that end user is because that's between our channel partner like Stone and their customers. And we're growing our global footprint. I mentioned our US data centers today. We've got Amsterdam and we've got Tokyo. And we've got second data center coming in Tokyo this week. I think you'll hear something about. So we're growing our global footprint this year. That's what we're up to. And then lastly, before I turn it back over and invite everybody back up for a little Q&A, if you need to find out more information about Stone and Wasabi and Tiger Tech, well, you absolutely can come to wasabi.com. We've got content up there. We've got previous recordings of webinars. We've got knowledge-based articles that help you understand how to configure Tiger Tech with Wasabi. We've got a solution brief that talks about Wasabi and Tiger Tech. And we have a fantastic white paper that Andy and Lance and I put together to help you better understand the benefits of hybrid cloud architecture for video surveillance. And I think you can probably download it directly from the webinar console right now. But if you're interested in more, you want to learn more, the best place to go is pencil ready, sales@stonesecurity.net. And if you want, I want to try a demo. I'd like to see how this works with my Milestone install. I want to know how I can get the Tiger Tech technology going and Wasabi. Andy and his team, right place to go, and they can help you out. So sales@stonesecurity.net. And with that, I'm going to invite everybody back and see if we have any questions to share. Stop sharing the screen. And Madison and Lance and Andy. Awesome. All right. Wonderful. Madison, what do we have for questions? Anything?
Yeah, just one quick thing before we jump into that. Like David said, we have tons of resources just below where you see our faces right now, including the slides that were used today. We have links to the Wasabi website, free trial, and the different white papers that have been put together on this topic. So definitely check that out. And that's also where you will submit a question if you still have any, but we'll jump into those right now. Does this solution work on an Axis camera without Milestone?
So that one's probably for either me or Andy. Andy, you want me to take that one?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
so
follow it up if there's something I can add to it.
Yeah, so we do have a version of our Tiger Bridge software that will work on basically virtually anything. So remember, this is because it runs at the file system level, it can move data that's sitting anywhere. It doesn't even have to be security and surveillance data. So the answer is yes, you can. We'd probably have to follow up with Andy to figure out exactly what the other pieces are in your particular configuration.
Yeah, normally what we're doing is working with a video management software of some sort. We do have clients that use Access Camera Station. They are few and far between. Most of our clients are using Milestone. Milestone does have a free version of their software as well that goes up to 8 cameras. So even if the way doesn't make much sense with just trying to get an Access camera to work in the cloud, we have a free option with Milestone too that we can help out with.
Yeah.
Awesome. David, does Wasabi require a minimum storage amount?
Oh, okay. Good question. And the answer is yes. Your minimum storage requirement is 4 KB, but you're going to be charged for 1 terabyte. So the minimum monthly charge is $5.99, regardless of how much less you're actually storing in Wasabi. So if you've got half a terabyte, you're going to pay $5.99. That's your minimum monthly charge. So yeah, there is no minimum monthly amount, but there is a minimum monthly charge, and that's 1 terabyte. If you got less than 1 terabyte, hit the free tiers over at AWS. Don't tell them I told you that, but anyone's got 10 gig, 100 gig, do it for free over at the AWS. If you got more than 1 terabyte, come to Wasabi.
Got it. David, does Wasabi have a UK operation?
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. We have a whole European team. As a matter of fact, I think we have a Milestone webinar happening this week over in Europe. So we do. Hit our website, or you can hit sales@wasabi.com, and we'll help you find the right people to talk to over in the UK or in the rest of Europe.
I guess we should clarify that we don't have a data center in the UK right now, but we do have a data center in Amsterdam, and we have lots of customers from the UK storing in Amsterdam.
And I would say stay tuned for more information on that one before the end of the year. There's plans happening there.
And depending on what the needs are, if there is a need for assistance on the integration side, we've definitely done projects all over the globe, and we're happy to help. We can help from here, or we do have people that travel around the world and take care of customers. So if there is a need for technology beyond just purchasing cloud, we're here to take care of you.
Awesome. For Lance, how is the Tiger Tech software priced?
Oh, that could be for me and for Andy, because to call Andy, the guy down here, for me. But it's priced very similarly to the way Milestone does it. It's actually $1.50 per camera per month. So it's a really easy way to do it. There are discounts on 1, 3, 5 years for that. But it's basically because we know how many cameras are activated inside of Milestone. Since we're inside, we can just kind of follow along with your camera count. These are licensed devices, by the way, so there may be multiple streams. So it's only per the licensed device that could have 2 or 3 or 4 streams on it.
Great. Andy, does Stone do yearly cost plans for Tiger and Wasabi together? They're saying monthly payments are a little tough since they're a school district and have to budget.
We love our school districts. Absolutely. And what we actually kind of prefer the annual because we do it alongside of our annual support agreements. So we've certainly put together packages that are annual based. We can do monthly as well. It's important for everyone to see what the monthly costs are of each of these components of the system. But our drive is to put all of this together for our customers, so that essentially the customers are, if it's monthly or yearly, the customer's paying one fee for all of this stuff together.
Awesome. And Andy, am I able to do a trial of the solution together?
Oh, 100%. Great question. I really appreciate the question. we have assisted already. All those types of clients that I named in my section of the presentation are currently trialing both systems. We've had a lot of success with folks that have demoed it, and it's really easy for our team to help set up a demo. Like I say, Milestone has free software for up to 8 cameras. Lance and the Tiger team are very helpful in getting us pilot licenses, and always with Wasabi, we can do stuff like that as well.
Isn't there a special if you're on Parabolic skis also, Andy? I'm almost sure there is.
You've migrated to twin tips.
Twin tip. Okay.
And let's talk.
Awesome. All right, the last question for right now. How does this hybrid cloud solution differ from something that's all in the cloud, and why do you keep recommending it?
Let me do the first part of that. The number one thing that's extremely important, I think, for everybody to realize is if you try to do all in the cloud, that means all in the cloud except the cameras, right? So the cameras, the data from the cameras must make it to the cloud without ever a problem, or else your data falls on the floor. That's one of the single biggest things. The next one that we see a lot is it's very complex putting everything together that is required in the cloud. It's harder to manage different skill sets, et cetera. But the single biggest issue that we see is people want to protect their data. And with the hybrid cloud, you make sure the data is always being recorded. And then when the internet allows, you're replicating it to the cloud. So you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the video surveillance as a service models and this public cloud hybrid model. And I think a master class on that could be taught by the 2 gentlemen that went after me. But what we see our customers asking when they've researched a Verkada or a Meraki is those groups require a complete forklift upgrade of the cameras, because the cameras specifically that are sold with those systems have NVMe storage built into the camera. And even so much that you can't choose how much storage is on the camera. So if I wanted a 32 gigabyte camera in this spot, but in a week I decided, wow, I actually have more data that I want to store there, I actually have to physically uninstall and reinstall a 64 gigabyte version of that same camera. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot of other components of this conversation, but maybe one final thought on the difference between the 2 approaches is this is open platform. These are Axis cameras, generally our favorite, Bosch cameras, Panasonic cameras, anything out there that you have used already that you're comfortable using. You know, we have a recipe of success that we've put together that works. But if you don't go with this style of solution, you're kind of pigeonholed into what the camera is that they want you to use, and at the same time, you decide you're maybe unhappy with the relationship. That's another difficult forklift upgrade at that point.
Yeah, so I think that Andy and Lance nailed it. The only piece I would add is, from a storage perspective, we can protect everything that goes into a bucket. We can make that immutable. We can make sure it's not held for ransom. It's encrypted, and nobody can access that, damage it, or do anything to it. That can't be said for some VMS solutions that are in the cloud-based. So a bad actor accessing a VMS in the cloud and watching somebody else's video could be very damaging. So I prefer, and the people I've talked to prefer to see that VMS stay on-prem for security reasons. Beyond that, you can encrypt and put the file footage in the cloud, and nobody can ever see it or do anything different to it. So I think the cloud solution where the VMS on-prem is the way to go.
Do a quick Google search on hacks for both of those products that we mentioned before, because there are articles out there. They have had penetration problems.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, that's the last question for today. So wanted to say thank you again for everyone being here watching, and also to Lance and Andy for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And don't forget to check out the resources down below, and reach out to Stone Security if you want to check out the solution altogether.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
everybody. Have a great day.